It was the news no one expected, the kind of announcement that stops the nation in its tracks and leaves people reeling with disbelief. Before we dive deeper into this extraordinary moment in royal history, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss updates on the stories shaping the future of the monarchy. What we're uncovering today is nothing short of shocking. The palace has revealed that King Charles's health is in far more serious decline than previously believed. What was once spoken of as a manageable condition has now been confirmed as something linked to a cancer diagnosis following an earlier medical procedure. For a family and an institution that thrives on projecting stability, continuity, and resilience, the weight of this revelation is immeasurable. The image of the monarch has always been carefully curated, designed to embody strength and dignity even in the most turbulent times. Yet this disclosure tears away that carefully maintained veil, showing instead a man struggling with profound physical frailty. Reports of King Charles relying heavily on a walking stick, of his visible fatigue, and even whispers of turning to alcohol to cope with mounting pain and stress paint a picture starkly different from the strong figure many had envisioned leading the monarchy through its modern challenges. The acknowledgement of his vulnerability is more than a personal matter. It signals a fragile moment for the entire royal institution. In moments like this, the monarchy faces its greatest tests, not through scandal or politics, but through the simple and unavoidable realities of human life. Health is the one thing even the crown cannot control. And when the sovereign is openly battling an illness, the ripple effects spread through the family, through the palace walls, and ultimately across the nation and beyond. The sense of security people feel in seeing their monarch preside over ceremonies, offer messages of reassurance, and represent the endurance of tradition is suddenly interrupted. That interruption does not just cast doubt on the king's ability to fulfill his duties, it challenges the very notion of continuity that the monarchy embodies. It is no surprise that the palace initially tried to soften the news, offering reassurances and optimism. But in truth, the disclosure of a cancer diagnosis, coupled with images of King Charles's physical decline, left many feeling the ground shift beneath them. The monarchy's image of timelessness, of being somehow above the weaknesses of ordinary existence, now stands exposed. For the first time in a generation, people are faced with the stark truth that even the crown cannot protect its bearer from illness. And when that bearer is the central figure upon which the institution rests, questions naturally follow. Who will carry the torch of leadership in his absence? How long can he reasonably shoulder the weight of duty? And perhaps most urgently, what does this mean for the future of the monarchy itself? The emotional weight of this revelation is not to be underestimated. Generations have watched monarchs carry themselves with stoicism through wars, scandals, and public pressures. The very idea of royalty is built upon the separation between their lives and ours. Symbols, not merely individuals. And yet here is a reminder that beneath the crowns and ceremonies lies human fragility, a frailty that unites us all. For many, this sudden intimacy, this reminder that even the monarch suffers, is unsettling. For others, it sparks empathy, a sense of shared humanity. But one thing is certain, it has reshaped the way the public sees King Charles, not as a distant sovereign, but as a man fighting battles of his own. That transformation in perception carries immense consequences. The king's visible health struggles mean more than personal hardship. They symbolise a test of endurance for the monarchy itself. Institutions built on image and ritual rely on the projection of steadiness. Every public appearance, every ceremonial act becomes scrutinised for signs of weakness. A wobble with the walking stick, a strained smile at an engagement, or even a noticeable absence from the calendar feeds speculation. And speculation, when combined with uncertainty, breeds instability in the public imagination. This is why the palace's handling of the news is so crucial. It sets the tone for how people will respond, whether with confidence in continuity or with doubt in the institution's ability to adapt. At the heart of it all, King Charles's health crisis has shifted the narrative of the monarchy in ways that cannot be undone. No longer is this about preparing for a smooth transition into his reign after decades of waiting. Instead, his time on the throne now carries the weight of fragility from the very beginning. His illness is not a distant possibility. It is a present reality, one that forces both the family and the public to confront difficult truths. While his spirit and determination may remain strong, the image of invincibility has been pierced, and with it, the monarchy must find new ways to project relevance and reassurance. Perhaps the most telling element of this moment is how quickly it has sparked conversations about the future. Rarely in royal history has a reign been shadowed so early by questions of longevity and succession, but such is the consequence of transparency in the modern era. The palace, once able to shield the monarch from scrutiny, now exists in a world of instant headlines and relentless observation. Every detail of King Charles's condition becomes magnified, dissected, and debated. And through that lens, the monarchy's story has taken on a new chapter, one defined not by ceremonial triumphs, but by the raw human struggle of its central figure. In the coming months, the focus will not only be on his treatments or his ability to continue duties, but also on the symbolic role he plays in guiding the monarchy through this delicate transition. Can a monarch who is visibly frail still embody the strength of the crown? Can an institution that has built itself upon centuries of endurance adapt to the fragility of its leader in a way that inspires confidence? These are the questions now circling, not just within palace walls, but in the minds of millions. What is clear is that King Charles's health crisis has reshaped the narrative of the monarchy in ways that will echo for years to come. It has revealed not just the frailty of one man, but the vulnerability of the institution itself. And in doing so, it has forced a reckoning with the reality that time spares no one, not even the crown.
The revelation of the king's illness has left the monarchy standing at a crossroads, its public image shaken in ways not seen for decades. For an institution that thrives on stability and continuity, the idea that its leader is facing a serious battle with his health has created a ripple effect of uncertainty. In times past, the monarchy has weathered controversies and shifts in public sentiment, but those challenges were often about perception, about how people interpreted choices or traditions. This is something far deeper. The frailty of the monarch himself cannot be spun, hidden, or dismissed. It is plain to see. And that reality has chipped away at the carefully polished image of strength and timelessness that has long been the crown's greatest defense. The most damaging element of this moment is not just the diagnosis itself, but what it symbolizes. The crown has always represented endurance, a kind of permanence in the face of changing times. Now, the sight of a visibly weakened sovereign relying on a walking stick, paired with whispers that he has turned to alcohol to cope with pain and emotional strain, introduces an entirely different narrative. This is not the image of a steady hand guiding the ship of tradition. This is the image of a man wrestling with the weight of his own mortality, and the public cannot help but feel that fragility reflected onto the monarchy as a whole. For supporters of the institution, this news has been profoundly unsettling. The monarchy is supposed to be above the vulnerabilities that touch ordinary lives. The moment the illusion cracks, the crown feels less like a symbol and more like a burden. If the king is seen as unable to carry it, people naturally wonder who can. This creeping doubt is as damaging as any scandal, because it doesn't come from misbehavior or poor decisions. It comes from the raw, unfiltered truth of human weakness. Once people see the cracks, they cannot unsee them. The palace has tried to manage the fallout, but its strategy has done little to stem the tide of speculation. On one hand, they release statements meant to reassure, emphasizing his commitment to duty. On the other, his visibly diminished appearance during public outings tells another story. Every photograph, every video clip, is dissected by the media and the public alike. Was his smile forced? Did he appear tired? Did he lean too heavily on his cane? These details, however small, become magnified to symbolize larger questions. Can the monarchy still project the confidence it once did? Or has its core image of stability been permanently weakened? Compounding this is the whispered narrative about how the king himself has chosen to cope with his struggles. Reports that he increasingly turns to alcohol in moments of stress and pain, whether exaggerated or not, have caught the public's imagination. For a monarch, perception is everything. Whether or not he truly leans on drink to find solace, the rumor itself is damaging, because it suggests a lack of control at a moment when control is what people most need to see. It humanizes him in a way that is uncomfortable, not the warm relatability of a monarch who enjoys small pleasures, but the raw fragility of a man weighed down by illness and pressure. This is not the image of confidence the crown requires. The result is a monarchy in danger of being seen as fragile not just in its leadership, but in its very essence. If the sovereign projects vulnerability, the institution itself feels vulnerable. And while sympathy for the king runs deep, sympathy does not necessarily translate into strength for the crown. People may feel compassion for his struggles, but compassion cannot substitute for the sense of permanence and resilience that monarchy depends on. In fact, the more people feel sorrow for him, the more the monarchy risks being seen as an institution in decline rather than an institution of strength. This is why the palace is facing one of its most delicate balancing acts in generations. They must allow the public to see the king's humanity without allowing that humanity to eclipse his symbolic role. They must acknowledge his health struggles without letting them define his reign. And above all, they must convince the world that despite his illness, the monarchy itself is not diminished. Yet this is easier said than done. Every passing week of fatigue, every cancelled engagement, every whispered rumor of private despair chips away at that message of reassurance. And so the monarchy finds itself caught between two competing truths: the personal reality of a man fighting illness and the institutional necessity of projecting timeless strength. In many ways, this tension has always existed, hidden beneath the rituals and ceremonies that mask human frailty. But now, in an era where nothing remains hidden for long, the tension has burst into the open. The king's health crisis has not only exposed his own vulnerability, it has made the monarchy itself feel fragile, its public image shaken in ways that could have lasting consequences. For the public, this moment is not just about watching a monarch struggle, it is about watching an institution once thought untouchable suddenly appear breakable. That shift in perception is powerful, and it will take extraordinary effort to rebuild the image of stability that has been so deeply undermined. The challenge is no longer about addressing rumors or fending off scandals. The challenge is about convincing the world that even when the man who wears the crown falters, the crown itself remains unshaken. That, more than anything, will determine how the monarchy survives this moment of unprecedented vulnerability. While the king's health crisis dominates headlines, another absence has spoken just as loudly as his visible struggles: Queen Camilla's. Her conspicuous withdrawal from key announcements and appearances has fueled a storm of speculation. In moments when the nation expected to see her at his side, providing strength and reassurance, she has often been nowhere to be found. For an institution that leans heavily on symbolism, the Queen Consort's silence and absence are not small details. They have become questions in themselves, leaving the public to wonder what lies beneath her retreat. In times of upheaval, a united front is essential. Historically, consorts have been pillars of support, not only for the monarch personally but for the monarchy as a whole. Their presence reassures the public that the sovereign is not isolated, that the weight of duty is shared. Camilla's absence, however, has done the opposite. It has created an unsettling impression of distance and hesitation. Is she unwell herself? Is she overwhelmed by the magnitude of what her role now demands? Or is her retreat a signal of unease with the direction in which the monarchy is moving? These questions swirl without answers, and in the absence of clarity, speculation fills the void. For those who have watched her long and often controversial journey to becoming Queen Consort, her disappearance has reopened old doubts. The public acceptance she had painstakingly built over the years was fragile to begin with, reliant on steady appearances and an image of quiet loyalty. Now, that hard-earned acceptance feels at risk. Absence leaves space for memories, and those memories often turn back to shadows of the past. The very moment the monarchy needs unity and consistency, Camilla's retreat makes her appear uncertain, a step behind rather than a steady hand beside the king. The palace has offered little explanation, and that silence has amplified the unease. Unlike a cancelled engagement due to scheduling, this feels different. The timing, aligned so closely with the king's worsening health, has magnified its impact. The Queen Consort's role is not simply ceremonial, it is symbolic of continuity and strength in times of crisis. Her absence raises doubts about whether she is willing or able to shoulder that responsibility at a moment when it is most needed. Without her visible presence, the burden on the king feels heavier, and the monarchy itself feels more precarious. Observers have pointed out that her withdrawal comes at a time of growing contrast within the royal family. On one side, the king struggles openly with illness. On the other, the younger generation, particularly William and Catherine, step forward with renewed energy and purpose. Camilla's absence highlights that divide. It suggests not a monarchy pulling together, but a monarchy marked by gaps in presence, gaps in strength, and gaps in unity. In such a climate, the absence of one figure takes on an outsized meaning. It is not just about her role as a wife, it is about her role as a queen. People expect a queen consort to embody resilience, to steady the crown in times of turbulence. Her silence, therefore, feels almost like a vacuum at the heart of the monarchy. Each time she is not seen by the king's side, speculation grows. Is it health? Is it disapproval? Or is it an inability to adapt to the rapidly shifting dynamics within the family? These unanswered questions leave the public uneasy, and unease is the last thing the monarchy can afford at such a fragile moment. The optics matter deeply. In every era, consorts have been remembered not only for who they were, but for how they responded when the crown wavered. A queen who retreats in crisis risks being defined not by what she contributed, but by what she withheld. Camilla's absences, whether deliberate or unavoidable, risk cementing a narrative that she has distanced herself at a time when her presence was most needed. Narratives, once formed, are hard to change, especially when they reinforce long-held public doubts. To be fair, there may be private reasons behind her decisions that the public will never fully know. The pressures of life beside a monarch, compounded by illness and scrutiny, are immense. But the monarchy is judged not on private truths, but on public images. What the people see, or in this case, what they do not see, becomes the story. And right now, the story being written is one of absence, hesitation, and distance. If the monarchy is to weather this storm, the queen consort's role cannot remain undefined. She must either step forward decisively, reassuring the public of her strength and loyalty, or risk being written out of the narrative altogether. At a time when the crown itself feels fragile, the absence of one of its most visible symbols leaves a void that others are quickly stepping in to fill. And that vacuum, unless addressed, could shape not only how the public views Camilla but how the monarchy itself is perceived in this moment of unprecedented vulnerability. Just as the palace struggles to manage the narrative of the king's health and the queen consort's retreat, an unexpected development has seized the public's imagination: the launch of the Diana Initiative. Spearheaded by Prince William and Princess Catherine, this ambitious project has invoked one of the most powerful and enduring legacies in modern royal history: the memory of Diana. By tying their charitable efforts directly to her name, they have created something that resonates far beyond policy or philanthropy. It is an emotional gesture, one that stirs deep feelings not just in Britain, but across the world. The power of Diana's name is extraordinary, even decades after her passing. She was not just a princess, she was an icon whose compassion and humanity captured hearts everywhere. For William and Catherine to embrace her memory so directly is more than a tribute. It is a deliberate attempt to reconnect the monarchy with the qualities that made Diana unforgettable: warmth, empathy, and accessibility. By invoking her legacy, they have reignited emotions that had been carefully managed, even suppressed, within the royal narrative for years. Suddenly, Diana is no longer just a figure of the past. She is a presence shaping the present and influencing the monarchy's future. The Diana Initiative has been framed as a bold step toward modernization, a way of rooting the monarchy's charity work in values that feel human and relatable rather than distant and ceremonial. Its very name is a signal. This is about carrying forward what Diana represented. And that choice has struck a chord with the public. The project is not simply a charitable campaign, it has become a symbol of continuity with Diana's spirit. For many, it feels like the monarchy is finally acknowledging, rather than shying away from, the profound impact she had. This has not been without consequences inside the palace walls. For King Charles, the revival of Diana's name carries painful associations. It reopens wounds that were never fully closed, reminding the world of a story he has long sought to leave behind. For Camilla, it is even more complicated. Her acceptance in the public eye has always existed in Diana's shadow, and now that shadow looms larger than ever. Each time the Diana Initiative makes headlines, it highlights the contrast between the woman the public adored and the woman who ultimately replaced her at the king's side. For Camilla, the project is not just a charitable endeavor, it is a challenge to her own legitimacy. And yet, outside the walls of the palace, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. Crowds welcome the initiative with enthusiasm, charities align themselves with its goals, and the media portrays William and Catherine as leaders who understand the emotional pulse of the people. It is a masterstroke of timing as well. Launched at a moment when the monarchy feels fragile, it injects new energy and optimism into the institution, drawing attention away from decline and toward renewal. The brilliance of the Diana Initiative lies in how it uses emotion as a bridge. People do not simply read about its programs, they feel connected to it because of who Diana was and what she represented. Her legacy of compassion and authenticity gives the project a resonance that no modern rebranding campaign could ever achieve. And in that emotional connection lies its greatest strength. It makes William and Catherine appear not just as royals performing duties, but as heirs carrying forward a deeply personal mission. The contrast between this rising influence and the struggles of Charles and Camilla could not be starker. While the king battles illness and Camilla withdraws, William and Catherine project energy, hope, and continuity. Their association with Diana gives them an almost untouchable aura, as if they are carrying forward something larger than themselves. Each event, each speech connected to the initiative feels like a statement that the monarchy has a future rooted in compassion and modern relevance. But the emotional power of Diana's legacy is a double-edged sword. The more it shines, the more it exposes the vulnerabilities of the present. Charles cannot compete with the memory of Diana. Camilla certainly cannot. The initiative has tilted the balance of influence, making William and Catherine appear as the true center of the monarchy's future, whether or not that was the palace's intention. In a family where image and symbolism mean everything, this shift is seismic. The public is not blind to these dynamics. They see a monarchy divided between a struggling present and a promising future. The Diana Initiative has crystallized that divide, putting the younger generation in the spotlight while highlighting the frailties of the older. For those who loved Diana, it feels like vindication. For those who doubted Camilla, it reinforces old suspicions. And for the monarchy itself, it represents both a lifeline and a challenge. A lifeline in its ability to reconnect with people's hearts, and a challenge in the way it unsettles the balance of power. Ultimately, the Diana Initiative is more than a charity project. It is a statement about identity, memory, and the monarchy's attempt to reconcile its past with its future. By embracing Diana's name, William and Catherine have done something the palace avoided for years. They have allowed her spirit to re-enter the narrative openly, unapologetically, and powerfully. And in doing so, they have reshaped the landscape of influence inside the royal family. What began as a charitable venture has become a defining moment, one that has changed the conversation about who truly carries the crown's future. The resurgence of Diana's memory through the initiative has not only captured public imagination, but also placed new strains on the relationships inside the royal family. For Charles, the reminders are deeply personal, tied not just to history, but to painful memories he has long tried to move beyond. For Camilla, the implications are sharper still. Her place in the monarchy has always been complicated, dependent on carefully managed acceptance and the gradual fading of Diana's shadow. Now, that shadow is stronger than ever, threatening to undo years of careful effort. Camilla's discomfort has become visible in subtle ways. Reports suggest she privately questioned the need to keep invoking the past, remarking that the monarchy should focus on looking forward rather than dwelling on what came before. To many, this sounded like a thinly veiled critique of the Diana Initiative itself. In another setting, such a comment might have passed without notice. But in the current climate, it landed with weight. Her words seem to confirm what critics have long suspected, that she feels threatened by Diana's enduring presence, even decades later. Catherine, however, responded in a manner that only reinforced her growing reputation for grace and composure. Without ever naming Camilla directly, she framed Diana's legacy not as a relic of the past but as a foundation for building the future. By doing so, she deftly turned the conversation away from rivalry and toward purpose, reminding people that invoking Diana was about inspiration, not nostalgia. This quiet yet pointed response highlighted the stark difference in how the two women approach influence. One seems defensive, the other forward-looking. In the public eye, that contrast has only strengthened Catherine's standing. The subtle clash between Camilla and Catherine is not just a personal dynamic, it represents a broader struggle over the monarchy's direction. Camilla, tethered to the old order, emphasizes tradition, continuity, and moving past the wounds of history. Catherine, in contrast, embodies a vision of renewal that does not shy away from the past but uses it as fuel to connect with people today. The Diana Initiative has crystallized that tension, offering the public a choice between a monarchy that resists the emotional weight of history and one that embraces it. Princess Anne's role in this unfolding drama has also drawn attention. Long respected for her sense of duty and no-nonsense honesty, she has been notably cool toward Camilla. Those familiar with the family's history recall Anne's past connection with Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's former husband, a reminder that rivalries within the family go back decades. While Anne rarely seeks the spotlight, her visible frustration with Camilla has not gone unnoticed. In public moments, her body language and clipped remarks suggest a simmering disapproval, reinforcing the perception that divisions within the family run deep. For the monarchy, these internal tensions could not come at a worse time. With the king's health uncertain, the institution desperately needs to project unity and stability. Instead, the narrative is increasingly dominated by rivalry, unease, and shifting influence. Camilla's apparent resistance to Diana's legacy makes her seem isolated at a time when William and Catherine are drawing ever closer to the public's affection. Anne's coolness toward Camilla only adds to the impression of cracks within the royal household. And through it all, the absence of decisive appearances or words from Camilla herself has left the field wide open for others to define the story. The consequences of these dynamics extend far beyond personal relationships. The monarchy's survival depends not only on continuity of leadership but also on continuity of image. Right now, that image is fractured. On one side, a frail king and a queen consort struggling with acceptance. On the other, a younger couple whose every move seems to strengthen their claim as the true future of the crown. The Diana initiative has tipped the scales even further, placing William and Catherine firmly at the center of the monarchy's forward momentum while leaving Charles and Camilla increasingly in the background. Yet the irony is that this transition is happening not through official declarations or formal changes of role, but through symbolism and perception. The monarchy has always thrived on symbols, crowns, ceremonies, rituals. But now, the most powerful symbol of all is Diana's legacy, wielded not by the king but by his son and daughter-in-law. It is a reminder that influence in the modern monarchy is not solely about titles or bloodlines. It is about capturing hearts, shaping narratives, and embodying values that resonate with the public. By those measures, William and Catherine are already leading the way. For Camilla, this is perhaps the most difficult truth of all. Her journey to becoming queen consort was marked by decades of struggle, controversy, and slow acceptance. Just as it seemed she had settled into her role, Diana's name has returned to dominate the story, pulling attention and affection away from her. Each step she takes to assert her place seems overshadowed by a woman no longer alive, yet still more powerful in memory than she can ever be in presence. It is a cruel paradox, one that leaves her caught between the reality of her position and the unshakable hold of the past. What the public sees now is a monarchy in transition, its old rivalries resurfacing just as new forces reshape its future. The king's illness, Camilla's absence, Anne's disapproval, Catherine's composure, and William's rising influence all converge into a moment of profound change. This is not a collapse, but it is undeniably a shift. And at its heart lies the emotional power of Diana's legacy, an echo from the past that has become the loudest voice in shaping the monarchy's future. The monarchy stands today at a moment of profound transition. What began as concern over the king's health has become something far larger, a quiet but unmistakable shift in influence and perception. The crown is not collapsing, but it is evolving, and in that evolution the balance of power is tilting. The once steady image of Charles and Camilla as the anchors of continuity has been disrupted, while William and Catherine rise as the figures embodying renewal and hope. The monarchy's survival now rests on how well this generational shift is managed, and on whether it can meet the modern world's expectations without losing the traditions that give it meaning. King Charles's illness is not only a personal battle but a symbol of fragility within the monarchy. His dependence on a walking stick, the whispers of exhaustion, and the sense of strain he carries into public life all remind people of something no crown can conceal: time and health spare no one. This unavoidable truth has made his reign feel fragile from its earliest years, overshadowed not by scandal but by the simple reality of human mortality. That reality has forced the public to look toward the future more quickly than they otherwise might have, asking not only who will succeed him but what kind of monarchy will survive. At the same time, Queen Camilla's role has been tested in ways that reveal the limits of her acceptance. Her absences from key moments, her rumored discomfort with Diana's revival, and the perception that she has retreated rather than stepped forward have left her appearing diminished. For someone whose path to queenship was marked by decades of scrutiny, it is a heavy setback. The contrast between her position and Catherine's only makes it more striking. While Camilla seems haunted by the past, Catherine appears to embrace it, transforming Diana's memory into a source of strength and connection. The Diana Initiative has proven to be a turning point in this transformation. By naming their charitable work after Diana, William and Catherine have done more than honor a beloved figure. They have reframed the monarchy's identity. They have linked its future to the qualities people adored in Diana: warmth, compassion, and humanity. The emotional power of that gesture cannot be overstated. It has resonated globally, rekindling affection not just for Diana but for the monarchy's younger generation. In doing so, it has placed William and Catherine at the center of the monarchy's renewal, making them appear less like heirs waiting their turn and more like the present-day face of royalty. This has unsettled Charles and Camilla, who find themselves living in a narrative where their influence is overshadowed. It has reopened wounds, revived old rivalries, and exposed cracks within the family. Princess Anne's frustrations with Camilla, rooted in both history and present tensions, only add to the sense of discord. These internal frictions, once kept behind closed doors, are now reflected in the public imagination, further reinforcing the idea that the monarchy's true strength lies with the younger generation. And yet, through all of this, the institution endures. That endurance is perhaps its greatest quality, the ability to adapt, to shift, to redefine itself without ever declaring an end. Today, it is doing so not through ceremony or declarations, but through a natural rebalancing of influence. Charles and Camilla remain central figures, but the spotlight has shifted. William and Catherine, with their growing popularity and their embrace of Diana's legacy, are redefining what the monarchy looks like in the 21st century. They embody the blend of tradition and modern expectation that the crown must master if it is to remain relevant. What the monarchy faces now is not collapse but transformation. It is the story of an institution that must hold steady even as its symbols change. The king's health crisis, painful as it is, has accelerated this shift. Camilla's struggles have revealed the fragility of acceptance built over time. And the Diana Initiative has shown the extraordinary power of memory and emotion in shaping the present. Together, these forces have brought the monarchy to a turning point where the future no longer feels distant but immediate. The survival of the crown will depend on whether this moment is met with grace. If Charles and Camilla can navigate the coming years with dignity, and if William and Catherine can continue to bridge past and future, then the monarchy may not only endure but thrive. Its story will not be one of collapse, but of renewal born out of vulnerability. The crown may feel fragile now, but fragility can also be the beginning of transformation. And so, in this time of uncertainty, the monarchy finds itself reshaped not by scandal or crisis of legitimacy, but by the realities of life and memory. A king facing illness, a queen struggling with absence, a younger generation rising on the strength of legacy and hope. This is how history bends, not in sudden breaks, but in quiet shifts that redefine the path forward. The crown remains, but it is changing, and what emerges from this moment will determine not only the future of the monarchy, but the way it is remembered for generations to come.